been a while since we looked at a Resonator guitar, hasn't it? This is a rather nice Highway 61 model from Republic Guitars. Have we looked at a Republic before? I can't remember. It's a Texas-based company that was founded in 2007 by Frank Helsley. I believe they're actually built in China, and then they do the final setups, etc. in Texas. They're quite affordable. Many of them have a cutaway style body. The bodies tend to be a little on the smaller size too, I think, than some vintage examples. But the cutaway can certainly help the slide folks get right up there where the air is clean and the notes resound like an angel choir. They come in various finishes. Some of them are shiny like this, others are patinated. They also make some wood body models as well. In this case we have a guitar that is definitely set up for slide, to the extent that I'd almost assume it was for lap playing. Really, it's that tall. And the owner would like to bring down the action, as he has a hybrid technique that involves fingering as well as slide. So we're going to see what we can do. There can be challenges around changing the action on a biscuit-style Resonator guitar, because we need a certain amount of down pressure on the cone for it to sound right, and the design of these things is often sort of teetering on the brink of not enough pressure. This arched plate cover combined with the tailpiece means that there's only so much room to play around with in moving that saddle. Let's assess it. Yeah, there's no pretense that this was supposed to be fretted with fingers. That's 11/64ths on the bass side, 10/64ths on the treble. Standard sort of national Triolean action is usually around 8/64ths, an eighth of an inch, about 3.1 millimeters. So this is substantially higher. So we have to pair that information with what's going on with the saddle here. You can see there's a significant gap between the top of the strings and the underside of the palm rest. And there is not a whole lot of saddle exposed. I wish there was more, because we really don't want to lose too much height here. I mention it every once in a while that there is a minimum break angle that's necessary to keep a plucked stringed instrument in operation. And usually it's between 6 and 7 degrees. You can see just how flat the strings are as they run across the saddle here, and that has to do with the tailpiece and the sort of takeoff point for that here, paired with the saddle height. So in a best case scenario, we want to hope that there's a bunch of extra relief in the neck, that the truss rod is loose and it's taken on a considerable bow. So I got my capo on the first fret, and by depressing somewhere around the body and checking in the region of the 6th or 7th fret, I can see that there is actually quite a gap there. That's good. I have to press the string down quite a ways before it meets the fret. This is a feeler gauge here. That is 18 thousandths. It might be even more than that. Yeah, it's somewhere in the region of 20 to 21 thousandths. So this is excellent. That means that hopefully the truss rod works and we can adjust some of that relief out, which is going to have the effect of lowering the action slightly. And as usual, we have to make the caution that the truss rod is not really there to change the action. That is a side benefit sometimes in cases where things are extremely out of adjustment. So what do we think? Is that a 4mm? Probably. Could also be a 5/32, which is just underneath 4mm. I think it's 4mm. I feel it's fairly loose, so I'm going to give it a significant turn because there's a lot of relief to take up. Okay, that hardly put a dent in it. Came down about 2 thousandths. More adjustment necessary. Okay, got it down to 5 thousandths. The rod is feeling pretty tight. I'm not sure how much more I would want to take it. You know, with resonator action of say 8/64ths, your neck can be practically straight as an arrow, you know, because there's still plenty of clearance for the string excursion. You know, don't want to break the rod. That would be bad. The other thing to do is, when you're making these big adjustments, is make sure that the rod isn't hanging up somewhere inside the neck by giving it a bit of a massage. bending it backwards and forwards a little bit. That'll help it settle into place. Also, with an adjustment of this size, I'm going to want to look at this guitar over the next couple of days to make sure there isn't a delayed reaction, which can sometimes happen. You know, the wood will take a while before it really wants to settle in. With the neck straightened out, I can check and see what's going on with the nut slot height by measuring the clearance of the string over the first fret. In this case, you got around 24 thousandths on the bass side, and also about 24 on the treble, which isn't terrible, but it can come down a little bit. Every little bit helps. This is a really minute kind of adjustment. It's not going to have a huge effect on the overall height at the 12th fret where we're measuring, but you know, for ease and comfort of play, especially on the treble side, there's more clearance there than is necessary. Depressing the string between the second and third frets, I can sight the gap. And if I have to push the string any great distance, it's too high. There should be a barely visible kind of distance between them if you look at it with the light behind it. And again, in this case, I'm trying to wring every last little bit of action I can out of the thing before having to touch the saddle. We've got 22 thousandths. Still 9/64ths on the bass, and just under 7 on the treble, which is getting into playable territory. Now then, gentle viewers, here's a bit of an oddball. I don't have to do very much to this guitar. It's basically a setup, but I wanted to document it because you just don't see them all that often. This is a Gibson ES150D. It's a double cutaway. Those who are invested in electric guitar lore know that this model, the 150, is the granddaddy of all Gibson electric guitars. It was first produced back in 1936 when it was outfitted with the great big Charlie Christian style pickup. It wasn't named that at the time. Charlie came along a couple of years later. But it really was one of the very first commercially viable electric guitars played upright against the body. You know, that's what the ES stands for, Electro-Spanish, Spanish-style playing. The way you picture a guitar being played, as opposed to the electric lap steel slide guitars that were on the scene already. That first generation 150 was a non-cutaway guitar with F-holes. It's prototypical jazz guitar. Over the years it underwent a number of changes. They went through a couple of different pickup designs, etc. What remained the same was no cutaway. All the big name jazz artists started going for the cutaways, and the model was discontinued in, I think, 1956, if I remember. After that, Gibson started focusing on making the thin line instruments, like the ES335. It's about half the thickness of these guys. And those also included the semi-hollow concept with a central support block, which helps cut down on the feedback issue you get with a great big air chamber and a very flexible top, if you play at any kind of volume. Somehow, when Gibson was sold to Norlin in the late 60s, somebody figured that they should start making deep guitars again, and fully hollow. None of this support block business. But they could do them with the comfort and convenience of a double cutaway. They figured all those jazzmen would come running and buy a brand new guitar. Pro tip, don't rely on jazzmen for the financial viability of your business. It might not happen. So these were available for about 5 years, starting in 1969. 3-inch body depth, very narrow nut width. This is about as narrow as they ever went. It's supposed to be 1 9/16. This one is closer to 1.5 inches. Like, my little finger covers 3 strings. This one is a natural maple finish, which really shows off the rotary cut veneer plywood. Rotary cut means that they take a log and they steam it, and while it's still hot and wet, they'll mount it on a giant lathe, and a great big blade is pressed against it with tremendous force when it's spinning. And the veneer is peeled off in a continuous slice. It's like toilet paper coming off the roll, which produces a very busy and interesting grain pattern because you're going through all of those growth rings sideways. Hard to describe, but you end up with this swirl effect, which is distinctive. This guitar is in really great shape. In the back there's a less convoluted looking piece of maple veneer. This one has some bird's eye in it. Quite nice though. I don't think it was ever played standing up. There's no buckle rash at all. I'm just tuning it up to check the intonation. Do you guys notice anything? These strings are coming off the opposite side of the post. Besides frustrating friends and relations who try and tune your guitar, you've got the strings contacting adjacent strings and posts, which can cause issues. If you tune this one, you can actually be putting more pressure on that one. The octave is sharp. The saddle has to move away from the headstock. The G string was really sour because I couldn't move the saddle back far enough. I've had to reverse it and flip it around. Having done that, I actually have to cut a different slot because the spacing will be wonky if I don't. Bear with the sound of roofers pounding away above me right now. So I got this thing set up, the frets are polished. It can be difficult to date these from this era because Gibson was reusing serial numbers in the early 70s. However, this guitar does not have a volute, not even a little one, which would suggest it's probably from 1969. So yeah, this thing is basically like an ES-230, but thick. One weird little difference is a master volume on the treble horn, which is not something you see on very many Gibsons. It was used on some of the upper end models in the 50s, the ES5s, which is like a 3 pickup model. Some of the late 60s ES355s. Occasionally you'll see the pickup selector here for some of the big jazz models, but the volume, that's kind of unusual. It's time to remove the cover. Got to be careful with the screws. The thickness of material that they're threaded into is minimal. There's only like 2 threads worth. I need to loosen up the tailpiece. That's interesting. The underside of the cover plate has a ring of, looks like masking tape around the screw hole area. And all of the inside of the holes here have been deburred with a aggressive looking grinder. I'll tighten the tailpiece back up so I can put the strings back on. This is the story of dealing with Resonator guitars. You can see the spun aluminum cone, which is the heart of the Resonator system. Very thin, very fragile aluminum. Don't touch it, don't poke it. You will either put a hole in it or you'll crumple it to the point where it's no longer usable. I'm going to string this up a little bit and see what the angle looks like. This won't give me the true angle because usually the tailpiece is sitting on top of the cover plate, which is arched. So we'll frequently lose a degree or so because of that. But this should give me a ballpark figure. Okay, I've got my angle gauge here. I've set it to just over 6 degrees. Hey, that looks good actually. Even if we account for the extra height from the cover plate, I think we have about a degree to play with. So I can probably, remove a 64th of an inch or so and be okay. On the treble side, let's make sure it's in the groove. And not so much. Yeah, we're kind of at the bare minimum on that side. I don't think I want to remove any more. So I'll just take down the bass strings a hair. Not a job for when you've had too much caffeine. Gotta focus. Accidents can't happen here. Reinstalling the screws. My first turn should be backwards. At a certain point it drops into the threads, and you know that they're aligned between the screw and the body. And that way I'm not going to cross thread them and mess them up. Of course, Resonator guitars need some polishing. Here's part of the neck attachment system. I'm going to add a little bit of glue to hold these in place. Yeah. Okay, get to put some strings on. Got the D'Addario EJ42, which is their Resophonic guitar set. 16 to 56. I know. This is going to be tuned in open D, so we're kind of okay. Yeah, I wish it wasn't 16. I've had some experience with these. I wish it was a 14. But, you know, you give the people what they want. Not for every guitar. If you've got a 1931 Triolean, maybe don't put these on. Go for something lighter. And you do have to make sure that you're looking at the neck every once in a while, because this is one of the ways that you can develop 20 thousandths plus worth of neck relief. So just be aware. Pretty heavy set. Uncle Ted, how do you string one of these itty bitty little headstocks with the 3/8 inch narrower than my pinky finger slot? Way I do it, as I get the string, pull it taut, go up a full 2 tuner lengths, post lengths, and then a little bit more. Clip off the pair of pliers, take the end of the string, give it a good, hard, right angle bend. The first wind of the string goes on the side that's away from the center line. And the next one crosses over and is on the side towards the center line. It'll be kind of tight in this model. It's okay. It's not rubbing up against the sidewall. That's the main thing. What that does is it puts the takeoff point of this string towards the center line here, and it's a fairly straight shot up to the slot in the nut, and it's not going to be rubbing up against the end of the slot here where the cutout is. If you do it the opposite side, that's what happens. You end up cutting a big groove right along the edge here. Now, subsequent strings, it's going to be reversed. The first wind will be on the side towards the center line, and the subsequent wind away. You can see how the string crosses over the other one, and there is a gap between them. They're in no danger of banging into each other. Well, that's disappointing. The nut has shifted position. I think I can see some daylight through there. We must make amends. I'll get rid of remnants of the old glue. A couple little droplets of gel super glue. That's all it takes. And I put it on the end of the fingerboard rather than down at the base of the channel. If this ever needs to be removed again, it'll pop right off the fingerboard end. If we put it on the bottom, the base there, it'll tend to tear up everything as it comes off. I'll just hold that in place for a minute and it'll be ready to go again. Alright, that is a huge difference. I found it was pretty much unplayable before. Now, it's nice. The action is just under 9/64 on the bass side, just under 7 on the treble. In a best case scenario, I'd want it a little bit lower, but to get that last little bit would require either a neck reset or some pretty serious other modifications. Resetting a neck on these, you should know, they don't attach like a regular guitar neck. They're almost like neck through construction. There's a beam that goes the entire length of the body and ends up against the end block, and the whole thing has to come out. Various angles are adjusted, there are shims involved, and of course removing material off the end of the heel like we normally do. It's not a quick fix. The other thing I have done in the past is to take the tailpiece and lop off the front of it. You see how the strings go over a little hump here? Well, that actually raises the break angle slightly. And if I can get rid of that, it can then allow me to lower the action another maybe 64th. But you're cutting up a part of the guitar. That's usually the last ditch attempt to not spend money before the neck reset, and there is a point of diminishing returns. I suspect the customer will greatly enjoy the new action as it is, and in the future, if we have to do that, we can always do that. The improvement of the action at the 12th fret is actually mild in comparison to what was going on in the center of the board. It's a lot easier to play.